All right, first road trip of 2026 for the San Diego Padres. They're enjoying an off day in Boston before they face the Boston Red Sox for the beginning of a 3-game series and a 6-game road trip. A little bit of news about this road trip, which we might spend a couple of minutes on. Hey, everybody, welcome to Friar Territory. I am Darren Smith. That is Marty Caswell. You can subscribe to Friar Territory on YouTube. You can find it wherever it is that you find your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe, whether it's audio, video, some combination of both. And while you're there, why not check out friarterritoryshop.com so you can get the very latest Friar Territory gear. Marty, Boston and Pittsburgh. I don't know if you have any experience in either one of those places. I've been to Boston as a fan in my life. Never been to Pittsburgh to watch a baseball game, but that's what we're looking at here on the schedule for the Padres over the next 6 games starting on Friday morning, West Coast time, when the Padres will be on the field against the Boston Red Sox.
Hi, Darren. Great day for an off day. Yes, I have been to Boston. I was there a couple years ago when the Padres were there, when Xander Bogaerts made his first return since signing. Although he did not play, he was on the injured list. Have I been to Pittsburgh for a baseball game? I have not been to Pittsburgh for a baseball game. I know it's one of the most beautiful ballparks in America. I've been to, of course, the sister stadium. I saw the Steelers and Chargers way back in the day, but I have never been to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I've been there for a football game myself back when it was the old Three River Stadium. One quick note, just because this is the story today and it's Thursday and there's only 3 or 4 baseball games, but I did see that the top headline on MLB.com and on ESPN.com for baseball is that the Pittsburgh Pirates are calling up the top prospect in the sport. His name is Connor Griffin. He's 19 years old, number 9 pick, 2024 draft. This is the top story in Major League Baseball today. Now, maybe that's just because, like I said, it's a slow day. There's only been a handful of games.
Right.
But it feels like it's a big deal, and the Padres are going to see this guy coming up next week, right? I just wonder, is there anybody, and I say this anecdotally, that Pittsburgh Pirates fans are excited, I guess? And they haven't had a lot to be excited about. Paul Skeens obviously is a blossoming superstar in the sport. Is there anybody in the Padres organization that you think would excite Padres fans if you found out on an off day that this prospect was getting called up to the big leagues? Do you think that there's anybody, not maybe that's an apples to apples comparison to Connor Griffin, but do you think there's anybody that would genuinely stimulate and excite Padres fans in a way that this prospect appears to be exciting not only Pirates fans, but also Major League Baseball?
Oh, for sure. Leodalis DeVries. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Is he, whoops, too soon. Is he gone? That would have been the guy because all the tools that he has shown, right? He's an exciting player in the position that he plays. I mean, maybe Ethan Salas, but I don't think to the same degree that it would a couple years ago when he was like, he seemed like one of the top prospects in baseball. And I know because of the injury, it's not fair because of the injuries he's gone through, but I think Salas would be the kind of like the name, and there's still expectations and some hope about figuring out his offense when he recovers from his back surgery. But I think it would have been DeVries. Now he's with the Sacramento A's, whatever they're called, but I would say Salas.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Too soon. I mean, we're still basking in the afterglow of what it is that Mason Miller just did in Game 3 against the San Francisco Giants, and you're already going back to Leodalis DeVries. So, but I think you might have a point. And I also think that you're right to point out that it is Ethan Salas. Even if he has dropped out of some of these prospect lists, I don't know where exactly he ranks on the different lists. This is stuff that it's tough to keep account of from time to time. Like, you never know. But even Ethan Salas hitting a home run in the spring breakout game seemed to excite people on social media. So, I mean, I think you're right to point out that if there's a situation, and I don't expect it, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen, it's hypothetical. But if there were a situation where Ethan Salas, who was the number 1 international draft prospect, or international prospect, I suppose, would be the right way to say that, if he did somehow figure out a way to factor into the big league conversation, I think you're right. I think he probably resonates a little bit more with Padres fans and perhaps even across Major League Baseball. But it feels like the Padres have a different strategy.
That would have been the guy. You know what? It's funny. I wasn't expecting you to start that way with Connor Griffin today, who the Padres are going to see. They have two guys who are creating some buzz. Now, Paul Skeens is no longer a prospect. He's arrived. He's one of the great big stars in the game. It's just a matter of time before he's traded to the Dodgers or the Yankees or whatnot. But I was thinking about that too, because we've had these conversations because AJ Preller has traded so many of the prospects away. Do the Padres have a guy like that in their system that's going to create buzz? The answer is probably, you can't stop. Sorry, Darren. It's spring break right now, and he's trying to drink. No, you cannot have 7-Up for breakfast. You can't have that. I'm sorry. For those of you listening on the pod, it's spring break here in San Diego. My nephew's 8 years old. He always gets up at the worst times, and he wants to drink 7-Up right now. Speaking of catchers, and I actually meant to bring this up in the last show, Darren. Did you see that one former Padres catching prospect by the name of Austin Hedges just received 10 years in the game? 10 years in Major League Baseball. That is quite an accomplishment from Austin Hedges.
Isn't it incredible? This is a guy who I think is a 185 career hitter.
Yes.
Who, at least not to tear this down at all, because I think if you've ever listened to our radio show, you know that I and Marty, we've talked to Austin Hedges since he was in A-ball. Yeah. Since he was with the Lake Elsinore Storm. Marty is wearing a Lake Elsinore Storm hat, the Padres A-ball affiliate.
I am.
To go 10 years in the big leagues with that kind of batting average and to win a World Series on top, I don't know how you can't describe this as one of the most intriguing careers that we've ever seen in the sport. I'm serious. This is just an incredible accomplishment for Austin Hedges. So I have never knocked him for his career. People can say all you want. We understand what the numbers are. There's 10 years now of evidence. We understand. He's one of the worst hitting players ever to play the game. How that stacks up with other offensively deficient players that have played in the history of Major League Baseball, I suppose at some point. Personally, I think you should go to the Hall of Fame, because how good do you have to be to have a 10-year career if you're batting $185?
Right. It's remarkable. It really is. And I really probably need to revisit how we talked about the Padres catchers, whether it's Freddie Fermin, whether it's Luis Campusano still looking for his first hit. It shouldn't, the topic of conversation when it comes to the catchers should not be about the offense. It should be what they do behind the plate. Darren, I am looking forward to checking in with Heath Bell in the next segment, get his opinion on what we've seen from the Padres about, the learning curve for Craig Stammen, what Marquez and Buehler, by the way, speaking of Red Sox homecomings, what these guys have left. So we'll get there. But before, I have one question for you. Just based on a very small sample size of 6 games, right now, what do you think is the Padres' biggest priority? Sorry, you're muted.
Let me unmute my microphone there as I contemplate. What is their biggest priority? The biggest priority is probably getting their guys to hit a little bit, I think. Now, I understand that the obvious answer is starting pitching, but we're only one time through the order. I would say, Marty, yesterday we talked a little bit about some of these statistics, and it's way too early to point this sort of stuff out. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to point it out anyway. Because we talked about how the Padres were 30th in slugging and only hit 2 home runs entering the finale against the San Francisco Giants. They have climbed out of the cellar. They are now 28th. But you know who's second in slugging? The Houston Astros. Any idea, Marty, why I'm bringing up the Houston Astros?
Because they just swept the Boston Red Sox?
Well, not only that, but do you know who their hitting coach is?
No. Oh boy, Victor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Of course.
Now, am I giving him all the credit? Was he getting all the blame? Some people would say he got a lot of the blame for what it was that was happening last year. I think it was more of an offensive philosophy that was probably put in by the manager. But, the fall guy is always around here as the hitting coach. Well, the hitting coach now is the hitting coach for the Houston Astros. And at least through the first week of the season, that team appears to be doing so. I would just say it would be getting the offense going. I understand, Marty. I think you're going to have a different opinion about this. So what do you think? What is their top priority?
I would have to agree with you. Get the offense going. Take some pressure off your pitching staff. You need these guys to carry it. If you're Walker Buehler or Marquez and you fall down by 3 runs early in the game, it shouldn't feel like there's that word, insurmountable. Your offense, the length of your lineup should be good enough to overcome some deficiencies to your pitching staff early in the season.
All right. We also did see Mason Miller, who went for more than one inning. Somebody who knows a thing or two about that is our colleague Heath Bell, because he did that quite a bit when he was with the San Diego Padres. So 3-time Padre All-star and our colleague here on Friar Territory, Heath Bell, when we return on Friar Territory.
AJ, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Fox One. Fox One is where you can watch AJ Pierzynski. And I get this email every week now, AJ, that says what to watch this week on Fox One. They give you the weekly watch list. And now that is going to be full of Saturday MLB games with a little bit of you, a little bit of Ken Rosenthal, and your friends.
Absolutely. That starts next Saturday, Sky. You can watch all the games on the Fox One app. You can watch college basketball. You can watch college football. You can watch, they have IndyCar, they have NASCAR, and they have great shows. Fox One is the app that really does have it all.
Start your 7-day free trial today. Offers are subject to change. Go to Fox One for complete terms and conditions. Fox One, streaming now.
All right. Well, Marty has completely disappeared from this conversation. I hope Heath Bell is not going to take that too personally. But I did mention it right before we went to break, and I did go scrolling through some of the game logs that Heath Bell, in his all-star years for the Padres, this is something that we talked about yesterday with Mason Miller. He went more than the 3 outs, more than an inning. Heath Bell did that quite a bit. There she is. She has returned. So I do want to talk to Heath about that here on Friar Territory. Heater, good to see you again. Thank you very much. How have you enjoyed the first week of the season?
Not really fun watching the Padres. All their weaknesses are getting exploited. So it's kind of only 2 happy days kind of so far.
Yeah, that's it. Avoiding the sweep, right? I mean, that's the way it's going. You avoid the sweep against the Tigers and avoid it against the Giants.
Yeah, last game, I think if it wasn't for the errors at first base, it could have been another loss. I mean, Nick Pivetta pitched really well, but it just, if it wasn't for those errors, I don't think we would have jumped on top of them.
Well, Laureano did had a big the Padres' best defensive player, who we weren't expecting at this point. Laureano made a big impact, so maybe they would have. But the offense has been disappointing.
It's a chance, but when one team is making some errors, you put guys in that you normally wouldn't put in a game situation. If the game's tied or whatnot. And not saying those guys aren't good, but it's just a different mindset. It's kind of like, oh, geez, let's just not get this game, lost away from us. Let's try to give it a chance. But you kind of feel like, well, we've won the first 2. It's not the end of the world if we lose the last one because we won the series. I'm pretty sure that's what the Giants were thinking. So, I mean, my thing is don't be happy about, the false success, I would say. There's a lot of working that the Padres need to do. The offense philosophy is not working. What they did in spring training is not carrying over like last year. I think the lineup mixing it up, we don't figure out who's going to be the leadoff guy. They're not sitting and saying one thing. I think Craig Stammen's made some, he doesn't have a whole lot of decisions to make, but it seems like every decision he's making, it isn't really necessarily working. And it's just a little frustrating from, on a fan standpoint right now.
What have you thought? It's early in the process for Craig Stammen. On yesterday's show, we talked about Craig Stammen leading on his bench coach, Randy Knorr, to come up with that lineup yesterday that proved effective. And which also, by the way, it's Tatis back in the leadoff spot. Now, is that surprising to you that Craig Stammen is so candid about, listen, I give up? And I think he was joking about that, but he's leaning so heavily on one of his coaches to come up with the best lineup.
Well, your manager is supposed to be the leader. And when your leader doesn't know what's going on, you can't just say, well, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to ask other people. Then why isn't the other people leading? So that's kind of frustrating for me to see and to hear. So, and I think for the fans the same way. And it's just, you always have to have an answer. You got to, even if you talk to other guys and get, like you talk to your other coaches and say, hey, what should we do? What would you do here? What would you do there? You're the one who's making the decision. So at the end of the day, it's your decision. You can't say, well, what I've done hasn't worked, but John over here, he said do this and we won. So maybe I'll talk to John the whole time. It's like, well, then as a fan, and if you're being real, I'm going to be like, should John be the manager because he knows what he's doing and you don't? I mean, what are you here for? So I just don't like that from Craig. I think he's a great guy. I just think he needs to learn to be a better manager / better coach, especially when you talk. Because I feel like if the Padres don't do well this road trip, what's Craig going to say now? Is it John's fault? It only worked one time. Like what's going to happen down the road? So that's just my take on it. You never show weakness if you're leading.
Are you saying he's being too candid with the media because he's very, very honest, which I know as media we find refreshing and we like it, but a lot of times when you are speaking to the media, you are also sending a message to your players as well. And maybe that's what Mike Shildt did too much. He was too unfailingly positive in his post games. Are you saying perhaps Stammen should give us some BS in his post-game pressers?
Well, I think you can be honest, but you don't have to tell them the whole truth. You don't have to tell them every single thing. Like, hey, you know what? We came up with a better lineup this time. And you just say we. You don't say, I came up with a better lineup. Because I will tell you, Craig does not make the lineup. It comes from the high ups. It does not. He might write it in, but they say, here's the lineup. Because I've talked to other managers, the Dodgers manager and Phillies manager and other managers out there. Most of them, I haven't come across one yet that literally makes the lineup. So I would find it highly suspicious. Craig, first-time manager, is making the lineup.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, I have heard that the Padres aren't as bullish on that from the front office. They might have an optimized lineup that they say, hey, listen, Bob Melvin or Mike Shildt, this is what we think, but ultimately it's going to be up to you. I do wonder if that has changed a little bit with Craig Stammen. And Heath, I think all the points that you're raising are points that are fair. And I try to take a lot of this with a pinch of salt because, this is the situation, right? I mean, Craig Stammen is a rookie manager who was a surprising choice. But I have wondered myself, and I would ask you as a former big leaguer, what it is like when you do have a manager who gets up there in front of the press and says things like some of the stuff that he has said, including like, hey, I've got a lot to learn here. Like, I am learning this job on the fly. We all understood that was part of the package when you hired somebody like this, that he's not Bruce Bochy. He's not a guy that's done this for decades. But I do really wonder inside of the clubhouse if the players hear that about a guy going, yeah, I've got a lot to learn. Like, I'm kind of figuring this out on the fly. Like if that sort of makes people inside of the clubhouse go, yeah, I don't know about this situation right now. Is this in the best interest of my career?
As a player, if you hear your leaders going, I don't know, I'm just making this up as I go, you're kind of being like, okay, do I need to tell him what to do? Because every player out there has an idea of how to do it. And so which one's right? Is Tatis' version's right? Is Mason Miller's version's right? Is Joe Musgrove's version's right? No, it's whoever the manager's version is the way you're supposed to lead. And that's the hard part. Like, I think Craig should be honest, but you don't have to be brutally honest. You can, it's like, hey, you know what? It's fine. I would be very positive in this situation. If I was manager, or what I'd like Craig to say is, hey, it's the first week. We have, how many more weeks of the season? There's only 6 games. There's still 140 some odd to go, or 150 to go. It's fine. It's not a big deal. We had a little rough patch. We're not hitting on all cylinders. It's okay. We're going to turn this around. These guys are professionals. We're going to move forward. And those are all true statements, not going, well, what I haven't tried worked, and I'm kind of making it up as I go. And Pete over here did a great job. He did the lineup. Okay, what are we just rolling dice out here? I mean, what's the leader going to say? So, like, as a player, is the clubhouse going to get lost as in who's really running the team? Whoever influences, Craig is talking in his ear, this and that, then you go talk to him. Or can you actually be honest with your manager? Because I'm a big believer in players and coaches need to be very honest with each other to get the best out of them. Hey, take a day off. Hey, I'm fine. I feel really good. Hey, my arm's a little sore. But if he's not really making the decisions, why are you going to talk to him? So it's this give and take. That the one thing that I was worried with Craig, I know he's a great guy playing with them, is he going to be able to lead the team right where the promised land? Because I'm a big believer in, the leader, you have to respect the leader. You can't be buddy. You can be friends with everyone, but you can't be like going out buying drinks and this and that and being cool, this and that. There's a simple like hierarchy. Like, it's like dad. If dad's running the team, you can't like, well, let me go play video games with you all the time and get all this. It's like sometimes we got to say, hey, it's bedtime. We got to go to bed. Where the kids are going to be like, I don't want to go to bed. Let's keep playing. and if you're like, yeah, let's keep playing. So, and you have to be responsible a little bit more. That's all.
I'm not going to be in Boston, of course, for this road trip. But my first question, my biggest question to Craig Stammen would be, where did you fly on the airplane on the way over? Because one thing we heard from him and Manny Machado, right, when he was first hired, Manny's like, hey, we were great friends. We played cards all the time together. We sat in the back of the plane together. We were buddy. Our wives were friends. So I would love to know where does Craig Stammen sit on his first flight, right, on this road trip? But the advantage he does.
Play cards with the coaches.
With Randy Nora, with his bench coach, and talk about the lineup. But one advantage he's going to have over a guy like Jace Tingler. I mean, Craig Stammen is respected in that clubhouse. And those guys have said, all the players have said he is.
As a player.
Right, no, as a player. But they're saying that even early on in spring training, that he has drawn the line and he's not afraid to be extremely critical and honest with them. I know that's what they're saying. And Heath, your point a couple weeks ago was, what you want the most is a manager who's not going to lie to you, who's going to be very, very honest. Small sample size. They are saying he has done that. We're going to go ahead and see how it plays out. You made it very clear.
Really quick before you finish and go on to the next thing.
Okay.
Do you think he's going to say that to Manny and he's going to say that to Tatis? That's my question.
I think sometimes it is his job to lie to these players.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think I don't know. That's a great question.
Like, hey, Tatis, you need to pick it up, or I'm going to put you down in the lineup.
Yes.
I think you need Manny as an ally if you're the manager of the San Diego Padres.
I'm just saying, because Bogaerts or Cronenworth, if they're not hitting, they're going down the lineup.
I think he's made some more but he's made more pointed comments about those two players specifically that managers in the past haven't. Mike Schilt was just, I mean, come on, enough. 0 for 6 strikes. Oh, he looked great about. I mean, he's already said before that he expects a lot more from Fernando. He's made that point. Like there are times where he looks like he's checked out of a game. He said that right after he was hired, and he's been candid on Manny. No spring chicken. I know, but he was talking about watching him last season. He wasn't talking about this season. That was just we haven't heard managers say that about Fernando, but like, dude, the guy looked like he was mentally checked out. We need more from that. So we'll see how it evolves.
I think Craig is doing a good job. I think it's early, and it probably seems like I'm being very critical towards him. But my question is, if the team keeps doing this on the road, where does it stop? He says, hey, I need more from Tatis. Mm-hmm. Great. He's checked out in the past. Well, when he's checked out, let's see if Craig actually goes, sit the bench.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's I'm worried that he's not going to do that to those two players where everybody else will do it too. Mm-hmm. But, like that one manager that's good, but his stars can do whatever he wants.
Randy Nora, finest new leadoff hitter. Yeah.
A lot with that. I've been with managers with that. You lose the clubhouse when you do that.
I also think sometimes it's the manager's job to lie to the players. So that whole honesty thing is another one that I would take with a pinch of salt, because sometimes you're told things from your front office that you cannot relay to your players. You literally cannot say that we're working on a trade where you might be traded the hell out of this clubhouse before too long.
But here's the thing:
you can't be honest about that.
That's a little bit different. But being on the field, performing on the field, that's what you talk about. You don't talk about. I mean, here's the other part: if you're the GM, are you going to go to the manager and say, "Hey, we're going to trade this guy"? No, you're going to trade him if you want him to. You may tell them, you might have a conversation, but your GM or president of operations now is going to do what he wants. That's where the manager, hey, I need you to pick it up, or hey, I need you to have an off day. No, I don't need. No, I need you. Or you can have a conversation, and maybe you can use them to not have an off day and show that you can pick it up a little bit. But that's where the relationship of being honest and stuff is. Where, hey, I need you to have an off day because your swings, you're getting a little slow. You're being a little sluggish. I know I need you in the lineup, but I need you in the lineup all season instead of, for 4 months, and then you drag off the last month and I give you 2 days off and then you pick it up again. How about every 2 weeks, have a day off? That's where I'm talking about. Be honest. Like, how's your body feel? How's it feel? So you can go to Mason Miller and go, I know you pitched 2 days in a row or an inning plus. Can you go tonight? Or he goes, I'm a little sore, but I can go. Well, that's saying, give me a day if you could, but if you really need me, I'll be there. That's the honest part of, talking with your manager, not saying, we might not re-sign you because you don't have the numbers this year, because you're not re-signing the guys as a manager. You're putting them out there to play and trying to give the club the best opportunity to win the game. And I think Craig still has time to do that. And I'm not going to really put the out there for the first month, but I've just seen little things like this. It just can't keep going this way. You can't say, well, I'm making it up as I go, or this didn't work, so I'm going to ask so-and-so if it works. And, like he made the lineup today and we won. I mean, okay, well, who makes the lineup tomorrow? You can have some fun and going, hey, we're not doing well, so we put the lineup in a hat.
Yep.
And we pulled it out of the hat. You could do that, but you have to be honest. Did you actually do that or not? So.
Well said. Hey, I do want to ask you a little bit about Mason Miller, because there was a situation, I want to say it was game 2 against Detroit, where some had asked, well, why wasn't Mason Miller available for more than 3 outs? And it would have been an up and down situation against the Tigers. Padres end up losing that game, so it's the kind of question that you would expect, I think, if you're the manager or any of us. And then we did see him go for more than 3 outs in the finale against San Francisco. You did this quite a bit in your career. I just went back and scrolled through 8 times in 2010, 3 more times in 2011. Could you just walk us through the mechanics of closer and what maybe the challenges are of getting up and down and going for more than 3 outs, and what that means for a closer like yourself and the experience that you've had doing it?
Well, the thing is, when you come in the game, the fans are all riled. You get that adrenaline going. You get 1 or 2 outs in the 8th. You got to sit down. When you go back out for the 9th inning, that adrenaline you have to make. The fans aren't. You don't have your song out there. You don't have the fans going nuts for you. So you have to keep that adrenaline somehow from the 8th inning to the 9th inning. That's really the only difference. It's like closer coming in when it's not a save opportunity. Where's the adrenaline coming from? Where's that, fire, attitude? Like nobody's going to touch me. So that's just the part that, what if the team hits around and scores a bunch of runs, kind of like the Padres did a little bit for Mason Miller. He's got to sit a little bit longer than throwing a pitch. We usually throw a pitch, jog out there, throw more pitches, and then you're in the game. So it's just a little bit different. It's really more mental than anything physical. And some guys do it really well, and some guys, they struggle with it.
Was there any difference for you physically, though? I'm sorry, just like if you went an inning in a third, or on the times where you would even give it 2 innings. Was there any difference for you physically in recovery?
Recovery, no, not really. Physically, it was just more mental. It was more mental to get up, then back down, and then back up. So I would go in the dugout and just kind of keep my head down and focus and not look at anything else, and just focus on what I got to do the next 3 batters, how I'd pitch to them. I'd relay it in my head numerous times, and I wouldn't let myself get distracted. And I think that's what worked for me.
Heath, Walker Buehler will pitch, I think, the finale in Boston against his former team on Sunday. And unless anything changes, Marquez would go the opener in Pittsburgh. What did you see from both of these guys in their one start?
Marquez, just his breaking ball wasn't breaking, so maybe he was drifting forward a little bit or whatnot. Walker Buehler was just a little bit. Everything he was throwing, even when he had some clean innings, was up in the zone. I just think maybe it was mechanically a little bit here and there for both of them. They just got to be down in the zone. They got to have their stuff breaking. But if your stuff doesn't break, you got to be consistently down in the zone. And I think both of them, typically they were a little high. I like their stuff a little bit, even though I know Marquez didn't have the best breaking ball, but that's just a mechanical flaw. That's all. Okay. Maybe he was just rushing a little bit. So that could be cleaned up really well, but you got to get the ball down in the zone. And that's the key. I mean, there's numerous pitchers that don't throw hard, that just, as long as they're down in the zone, the guys just beat the ball on the ground, maybe find a base hit here and there. But your defense, and Padres have pretty good defense, is going to hold them in the game. So I just think, it could have been first outing jitters. It could have been this, San Diego is one of the best places to play. The crowd is electric. Maybe they just were like too amped up, because I think what Nick Pivetta was the first game, opening day, just too ramped at all. And then they just kind of calm down and start pitching. So I think they'll be fine next outing. I really do. And in Boston, you got to be down in the zone. Otherwise, you pop the ball over the green monster in left field.
I'm sure there'll be a calming experience.
Keep it away from those righties. Yeah. Keep it away from the righties for sure. Hey, we got to ask you before we go.
Keep it away, but you jam them. You go right in, because everybody's, typically has got to go away. You go hard in, but you got to be down in it.
We'd be remiss in not asking you, what did you think of Mason Miller's introductory pyrotechnic display? It says, you took that to a new level when you became the closer.
You know what? I think it's awesome. I love corn, so it was great to hear corn out there because a lot of people don't play corn. But what was the best feeling was when Mason Miller said some of the clubbies came up with a song. Well, I had clubbies come up with my song, and I know I asked Trevor where he came up with Hell's Bells. The clubbies came up. So I think the clubbies, somebody's got to get a credit of who actually did all that. Because, the 300 intro, that was the clubbies and the media guy. I mean, the TV guy, Mike. So you got to give some credit where credit's due. And I think when you come out with a song that somebody else gives you, it just fits way better than actually you coming up with that song yourself. Because somebody else just sees something different and they just come up with a song and it usually just works. And hey, it worked for Mason Miller and it was great hearing corn.
I love that tradition continued from the clubbies. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, these guys are good, man. They're not just good at everything that they're responsible for, but also for the entertainment.
All that stuff. But man, they love the team. That's not a job to them. It's a lifestyle for them. And you can't say too much about them because they're the best. I mean, I've been on multiple teams, and I would say the San Diego Clubbies are probably one of the best around. Not saying visiting Clubbies. Well, San Diego's visiting clubby was kind of my home clubby back in the day, so I think he's one of the best. But there's some really good road guys. But all my home clubbies, I would say San Diego is probably one of the best guys out there.
Wow. Shout out to Spencer Dallin. All right. Peter, we appreciate it. What song would you have picked? Now I'm kind of curious. Did you have a song that you wanted to pick?
I had a song in the minor leagues, but it was If You Know Me, I'm Corky, this and that. And it was Ring My Bell from Janet Wade. Oh, yeah. And the funny part is I did it in A-ball, and everybody's like, it's like they want to hit you. It's not a good song. This is my own team. And I said, don't worry, because it's like, ring my bell, ring hits off you. And I go, don't worry, this is going to be amazing. And they're like, what are you talking about? Just wait until we go on the road. Every time we went on the road, they would play that song for me. So they were like, you're genius. I have my home song. They play on the road because they're trying to get into my head. And I was like, see, perfect.
It worked.
I love my song on the road because I played a quirky one at home. And they're like, oh, we got to play this because we could ring bell.
I love that. How did we never hear this when you were
reverse psychology? Good stuff.
Yeah, I do love that as well. Heath, good to chat with you. Thanks.
Hey, take care, bye.
All right, Marty, as always, a pleasure. Thank you very much. Don't forget you can subscribe Friar Territory on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, friarterritoryshop.com. That'll do it for the week. Padres through Boston. We'll talk to you when they're in Pittsburgh. Thank you very much for all the support, and we'll talk to you next time right here on Friar Territory.